Hello YouTube, welcome back to The Life's Good. I'm AJ, this is my channel, and this is AJ's Den. And don't panic, it's not a Christmas video. There'll be no Christmas music in this one, believe me. However, I am wearing my Christmas jumper because it is almost Christmas, and I'm trying to get in the festive spirit of things. However, the purpose of today's video is basically the follow-up to the last video in which I showed you the basic starting of a beer kit, a simple kit, 1 tin of beer mix, a bag of sugar, some yeast, set it away in a bucket, and that has been bubbling and fermenting for over a week, and in fact it's now finished working, as it were. I don't know if you can see over my shoulder. I'll bring you in closer and show you. But if you saw the opening scenes of my video, you'll see that the bubbles were going through that little bubble valve, that little water-filled valve on the top of the bucket. That is now dead level, no more bubbles, so this has now finished working. I have been about in the kitchen quite a lot, and I do keep my beer in the bucket in the corner of my kitchen. And the temperature in here, on average for the last week and a half, is around about this sort of 17 to 19 degrees, which is pretty ambient and pretty good for setting away a beer kit. Now what's happened is this has worked very rapidly, it's worked really well, and there are no more bubbles through the bubble valve, so this is now ready for the next stage. And what we need to do is to transfer the beer from the bucket into a keg. I've got one sitting here. This has all been sterilized using the same method as I use for sterilizing the bucket. I put a teaspoon or so of the sterilizing agent in the keg. I fill it with warm water, and on this occasion I fill it until it covers the tap exit. So where the tap is fitted on the bottom of this keg, as you can see here, I fill this up until it's somewhere on this rib, so it's well over the tap, and I allow some of that liquid through the tap so that it sterilizes inside that tap as well as inside the keg. And then I take, I don't know, I usually leave the keg an hour or so, and I just keep giving it the occasional shake and swirl around. I sometimes leave it on its side while it's sterilizing and move it around occasionally so that the whole thing gets thoroughly sterilized. Incidentally, I do give them a good wash before I sterilize them. I use a bit like I use a kitchen sponge that's got the abrasive side and the yellow soft side. I always give the kegs a really good clean out prior to rinsing and then sterilizing. Now I've done all that to this keg. It's had a good 2 hours almost of sterilizing this morning. Giving it a good rinse with cold water, and that is now ready to use. Incidentally, whilst I was sterilizing the keg, I popped inside the other bits. I'll just lean over here and bring these over. I've got a siphon tube. You can see that. I've got this length of siphon tubing. I've got what I call my siphon wand with a little sediment trap on the bottom. I've also got this little bracket which sits on the side of the bucket and holds the siphon tube in place whilst you're siphoning the liquid out and into the keg. And in addition, I've got what I call my siphon sock. It's like a little nylon bag. I suppose traditionally you would use muslin perhaps, but this is like a nylon material, very, very fine. And I attach that to the bottom of the wand, just tie it on the bottom, and that stops any little bits and pieces and odds and ends getting into the keg. So you just get the liquid and not sort of yeast sediment and leftovers from the fermentation. So these have all been sterilized inside the keg at the same time. All been rinsed, all ready to go now. So we're all set to siphon the beer from the bucket into the keg. And you will need some extra sugar for this. I've got 3 ounces or approximately 85 grams of brewing sugar in this little jug. And what I'm going to do is add that to the keg and then siphon the beer onto that. Then seal it and set it away in the pub, in the pantry, in the corner. You put it where you're going to be decanting it from, so you stand your keg in a suitable location and try not to disturb it from that point on. So that's the next stage. Siphon the beer from the bucket into the keg with the added sugar. Just giving you a little look at the bubble valve there before I disturb everything. As you can see, it's absolutely level. The water level is equal either side of that valve. There's no more pressure coming from the bucket, no more CO2 being pushed through that valve. However, that valve has stopped the ingress of any air that can bring impurities, all manner of other things that may affect your beer and cause mold and growth and poor flavour or whatever. So you don't want any nasties going in there, and that's the idea of the bubble valve. So it's allowed all the CO2 to escape, it hasn't let the air back in, and it's now finished working. You can tell that this is now ready to go to the next stage. What I need to do now is to remove the lid from the keg and add the 3 ounces of sugar. And I'm now going to stand this on the floor directly under the bucket of beer. I'm now removing the lid from this bucket, and you will see that on the surface of the liquid inside there is no more activity. It's not fizzing and bubbling. That was very, very active a week ago with quite a frothy surface on the top of the beer, but as you can see now in here, there's no activity taking place at all. That has fully fermented. So what we're going to do now is to transfer this into the keg using the siphon tube. I'm going to add this little clip to the side of the bucket. Now this is the point of the bucket where I said there's a little groove that allows you to put your fingers in to lift the lid off. That is ideal as the location point for this bracket. There's a section here that grips the tube. That's going on the inside, and this curly S-shaped part goes on the outside. I'm just clipping that over the edge of the bucket like that, and that will stay firmly in place. The next stage is to insert the wand and the hose. As you can see, I've attached the little muslin sock thing to the bottom of the wand. The hose is attached to the top of the wand. The end of the hose goes down into the keg, and this I just put now gently down all the way to the bottom till it's just touching the bottom, and push that hose into that clip. It's a little tight, you need to squeeze it up. There we go, and that is now gripped in place and will stay in place during the siphoning process. Well, now that everything is in place, the hose and the siphon wand are in the bucket, all held securely. The keg sitting here waiting to receive the beer. I have to now suck on the end of this hose to get it to start siphoning into the keg. It's at this point you always get a little cheeky taste of what the beer is going to be like when it's finished. So here we go, getting the beer to start siphoning. Always the same. It actually tastes quite good. It's got I would say almost a nutty flavour to this one. Slightly. It's quite malty. It doesn't taste yeasty or anything like that, but it's definitely a bit hoppy. It's got a certain hop hint to this coming through. That's going to be really, really nice when it's gone through secondary fermentation. The secondary fermentation takes place in the keg and helps to freshen and brighten the beer, and obviously the clearing of it whilst it's in the keg, so you end up with a nice clear liquid to decant into your glass and have a drink of. So what we're trying to do now is to get the sugar to mix in with the beer, which it does quite easily. I get the flow of beer to fall onto the sugar, and that mixes up sufficiently that the yeast that's remaining in the liquid will start eating that sugar and creating a bit more CO2. Well, all the beer is now in the keg. That's 40 pints, approximately 23 litres of winter warmer ale. This was a Geordie kit, incidentally, that Dan and Ben gave me as a birthday stroke Christmas gift. So the Geordie winter warmer has had its primary fermentation in the bucket. It's now put into the keg. I'm going to add the lid, and before I do, what I've done already is I smear some Vaseline or petroleum jelly, call it what you like, on the inside of the thread here, so that when this goes on the keg, it forms a nice seal. It also makes it a bit easier to remove when you've finished with it. So a little bit of Vaseline stroke petroleum jelly on the threads on the inside, and we're going to pop that on and do it up as tight as you can. You can actually get a specific spanner to go on there. I've got one in the cupboard. If you bear with me, I'll just pop in and get that out and let you see that before I continue. This little gizmo I purchased at a local home brew winemaking shop. It's a simple plastic gadget that fits on top of those keg lids, and you can get a little bit extra purchase on this. I tend to put the tap against my body here and just give that little extra turn just to make sure that that is thoroughly sealed onto the top of the keg. So it might be worth getting one of those for yourself, unless you've got anything else you can put on there to give a little bit more leverage. You can do it by hand, it works very well, but using one of these or something similar just gives you that little bit extra tighten up. And as I said, the Vaseline helps make it that bit easier to remove when you've finished using the keg. Worth mentioning now, you get your primary fermentation in the bucket, and all the CO2 produced exits through the bubble valve. Right, now of course this is all sealed. With the extra 3 ounces of sugar, this will now start to ferment again. It's what we call secondary fermentation. But on this occasion, the CO2 cannot escape. Although if the pressure builds up in here too greatly, if it's too high, there is a safety release valve on the top of here that will actually allow extreme pressure to exit without anything exploding or causing a mess in your home. So safety measure, valve on the top of here that will release excess pressure. But for the most part, what happens is the CO2 that's now produced by the yeast during secondary fermentation pressurizes the keg which you will note when you release the tap, the beer gushes out. At the same time, that CO2 is forced into the beer, and that's what carbonates the liquid. That's what makes your beer bubbly and frothy and puts the head on it. So the minute you release that tap and let the beer out, the CO2 is trying to escape. It wants to get out, which is why it froths and bubbles, and you get all that creamy bubbles on top of the beer in your glass, which is known as the head. So the pressurizing of this forces the CO2 into the beer, which gives it that little bit fizz and that little bit liveliness. Otherwise it would be dead flat and not so enjoyable. So there we go, 40 pints of beer in a keg, ready to sit in my pub. On that note, I think we're done for today. I've got a cheeky little glass of sherry here. I do have to actually go out this afternoon, so I couldn't drink very much. I do normally have a little ale or two whilst I'm making these videos. On this occasion I haven't. I still got some lager left, and I still have another kit of lager to make. And I'm having a look around to see what other kits there are available that I might purchase and make. I do like the American IPAs, so I might look for another American IPA kit and make that, and I'll probably take you through that as well. There's a few other things going on. I'm trying to consider the gardening aspect that I used to do. I'm looking at things in that respect. I am considering an allotment, so I'll keep you posted on that one. We'll see how we go with that. I've decided, this is a big decision, I haven't shared this with you yet guys, but I've decided it's time to retire from work. I've found work a little bit too much. I don't see why I should be putting myself through a lot of stress and hassle and commitment when actually I do qualify for my pensions, and I'm looking at ways of setting myself up for retirement in the new year. So again, I'll keep you posted on that one. So I thought I'd just drop that in at the end of today's video. So I'll have a little bit more time on my hands, and maybe it's time to consider that allotment scenario. So we'll see where we go with that. As I said, whatever I do, I'll keep you posted. So here we go. It's almost Christmas. Whatever you're doing, you have a good time. Best wishes to all of you. Much love, respect to you all from the Life's Good. And I'll be back in the new year with more videos, more brewing, and I'd like to do a little bit more on the chutneys and jams and things like that as well. So we'll see what we can throw into the mix next year. And as I said, the possibility of acquiring an allotment. So a lot of possibilities, a lot of things to consider, and whatever I'm doing, I'll let you know. Okay? Look after yourselves. Thanks for sticking around. Come back and see us again soon. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button in the corner. Give us a thumbs up. Alright? Have a look through some of my older videos. See where I've come from. See what I used to do. And hopefully we can get back to some of that next year. So, Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Look after yourselves. Stay happy. Okay? And we'll see you soon. Bye bye for now. Cheers.